few of the Bible stories, but have never really read the Bible. I probably wouldn't understand it anyway, so I just listen to the pastor when he preaches on Sunday morning. He certainly knows enough of the Bible for both of us, and he sounds like he knows what he's doing. Also, I've listened to a few Christian podcasters. They sound like they're knowledgeable about the Bible as well. But to be completely honest, I feel like I need more. I have questions. Lately, I've been interested in maybe reading the Bible for myself. I would really like to know more about Jesus, especially about the gospel he preached. Where do you suggest I start? Hello, friends. Welcome to this episode of Encounter Life. We are recording today at our satellite studio located at Sunset Corner in the Villages, Florida, where it has been a beautiful, sun-drenched 82 degrees. In this episode, we begin what will be an ongoing series of lessons that we call Encountering Christianity. Think of this as a basic Christianity class. Perhaps you have only recently begun your journey with Jesus and would like to know more about how to begin your faith journey. Or maybe you've been in a church for a long time and would like to rekindle your love for the Word of God. Or perhaps you would enjoy taking a refresher course on the fundamentals of Christian living. Then you are at the right place at the right time. The leadership team here at Encounter Church invites you to take a few minutes and listen to this episode of Encounter Life. Remember, one encounter with Jesus can change everything. Where do I start? Does that question sound familiar? How many times have you begun to read the Bible only to get lost, get confused, and give up? Maybe you have visited a few churches and leave more confused than before. Trust me, you are not alone. Sadly, this pattern has been the standard experience for a very large group of sincere people. Let's take a fresh look at this common setback. I am Pastor Kurt Ritchie, your host for this episode of Encounter Life. Today, I want to begin by encouraging you to try one more time. Don't give up. Just shake off your past failed attempts and try once more. Years ago, when I was 17 years old, I was hoping to get a date with a beautiful blonde girl in my class. So as not to keep you in suspense in regard to my success, that beautiful girl would one day be my wife. However, that outcome notwithstanding, in the matter of trying to get a first date, trust me when I say it was a long process. Not only was my first attempt to gain her attention a complete and miserable failure, so was my second and my third, and, well, you get the idea. If I had easily given up, my life would be nothing like it is today. At our recent 50th class reunion, Joni and I were visiting with one of our friends. Jokingly, I made the remark that I was pretty sure that the reason Joni and I were boyfriend-girlfriend was only because of my 66 Mustang convertible. Then, with a serious look, he responded, "You do know the real reason you ended up with Joni." Apparently, this had been a mystery among several of the guys in the LHS class of 74. And for the purpose of full disclosure, I can honestly confess it's long been a mystery to me as well. You see, I was in way over my head. Joni was way out of my league. No one was more surprised than I when she finally agreed to go out on a date with me. So just how did I end up with Joni? 50 years later, my friend was about to give me the answer. With respect, he looked me square in the eyes and he said, You're the only one of us that was willing to ask her out. I wasn't popular or good looking. I wasn't a member of the National Honor Society. I wasn't involved in a bunch of extracurricular activities or clubs. Joni, on the other hand, was everything I was not. But apparently, I captured her heart because I was willing to do what others were not. And I was willing to try and try and try again. The 18th century British poet Alexander Pope wrote, "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread." However, a clumsy, skinny guy who no one thought was smart enough or clever enough to date one of the most popular and prettiest girls in the class, that guy, who right now is sitting behind the microphone, would like to share with you a truth that has enabled him to live a pretty exciting life. I would like to add a second line to Mr. Pope's famous quote. "Fools may indeed rush in where angels fear to tread, but they oftentimes get the best seats in the house. Or, in my story, a sweetheart for the rest of my life." An astute observer might say that this expanded axiom could very well be the story of my life. What does all of that have to do with the matter presently before us? Your experience with Christianity might be marked with many swings and misses. Your experience, specifically with reading the Bible, may be a collection of false starts and stumbles. It may be fraught with pitfalls. But I promise you this, you will be successful if you never give up. Just try one more time. The second part of this lesson begins with a question. What two things propel every runner that crosses the finish line of a race? What do you think? Let me guess. How many of you said legs? The answer is obvious. It's legs, right? Raise your hand if your answer was legs. Well, that's not a bad answer, but it is not the correct answer. Though every runner may very well have two legs, and those two legs are a very important part of the process, they are not what propels champions. Those that finish first are propelled by, number one, the push out of the starting blocks, and number two, the pull of the finish line. If a runner starts with a fair and good beginning, and the prize at the finish line is desirable enough, that runner will be a competitor. They will be a contender. That runner will train harder and longer than the rest. That runner will continue through the pain. That runner is a threat to all that would oppose him. He is every coach's dream and an inspiration to his teammates. If, in your endeavor as a Christian to read the Bible, you, number one, get a good start out of the blocks, you will set yourself up for success. But what does a good start look like? What do I mean when I say get a good start? Well, there are two pieces to that puzzle. One component is technique. The other is a power component. Let me explain. When we talk about technique, we mean, for example, it might be a good decision to begin with the Gospel of Mark instead of the Old Testament book of Lamentations, right? It might be better to begin with Romans instead of Obadiah. There might be a time of day that would be best for you. There isn't some mysterious, perfect time of the day that is best for everyone. You're going to have to figure out what works for you. But herein lies the problem. A person can spend so much time figuring out the best way to read the Bible that while they become experts on methods and techniques, they fail to actually do so themselves. Seriously, this can be a bigger problem than one might suspect. Some people spend more time reading books on how to read the Bible than they spend simply reading the Bible. At some point, you have to step onto the track, get down, place your feet into the starting blocks. You can't take forever to do this, for there is a man on the field holding a starter's pistol. He's not going to ask you if you're prepared and comfortable, and would you like a few more minutes? He won't wait on you to get ready forever. A runner has to quickly get in position, and then when they hear the pistol shot, they push. This brings me to the second component. There's a great deal of science that goes into the process of moving a runner out of the starting blocks. I don't want to get into the weeds of leverage and geometry. However, let me summarize it like this. You have to push out of those starting blocks like you're the third monkey in line on the ramp into the ark and it's beginning to rain. You have to push like your life depends on it. This is not a drill. This is the real deal. This is the race of your lifetime. You need also to understand that reading the Bible is something you will do for the rest of your life. You'll never quit reading the Bible as long as you live. Reading the Bible is not an event that you finish in this lifetime. Reading the Bible is not in and of itself your finish line. Perhaps you have heard it said that reading the Bible is a marathon, not a sprint. I understand this, and it's not a bad way to look at the issue. However, I would like to take it up a level. The Bible is an unending adventure. One of the characteristics of the Bible is its timelessness. For every moment of your life, the Bible has this most wonderful way of speaking just what we need at just the right moment. So, what is the force? What is the push factor that will get you moving? Well, my friend, you have to push out of the starting blocks with a belief that God is for you and not against you. You have to want this race, this adventure that Jesus called the abundant life. You have to push like you want it. Hear this, my friend. If your want to is bigger than your ought to, you will succeed. That may very well be the best line of this lesson. If the prize at the finish line is big enough, you will run while others faint. Your desire to win the prize, if that's big enough, your weariness won't matter. The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. You will mount up on wings as eagles. You will run and not be weary. You shall walk and not faint. So, what prize could possibly be great enough? What trophy do you desire to possess? Let's be honest. No Christian is promised a race without difficulty. The Bible says it rains on the righteous and those who are not. So what reward could be waiting at the finish line that is great enough to keep you running through the rain, through the storm? We are told in the Bible to run with perseverance the race marked out for us. We are to lay aside everything that hinders and the sin that entangles. We are told to fix our eyes on Jesus, who is both the beginning and the end of our faith. There it is. Do you see it? The two things that propel our faith race. We begin with Jesus and we finish with Jesus. Between those 2 points, we run with endurance through whatever lies in the middle, always fixing our eyes on the prize. The Apostle Paul writes, I press on to take hold of that for which Christ took hold of me. Forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on to the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward. So much of the time, we are hoping that our pastor and or the ministries of the church can help us get through next week. We want them to help us write the next chapter in our story, when in fact, God is helping us with the last chapter. God is not nearly as concerned as we are about next week, but rather he is concerned about our eternity. God exists. He lives, breathes, and moves in a realm we call eternity, unfettered by time. He is not hindered by hesitation. He is not waiting for the rain to stop and the sun to shine and the necessary funds to arrive. When he thinks of us, he sees us through the lens of eternity. His plans for us will only be understood when we consider them through the lens of eternity as well. Let me say it again. God cares more about your last chapter than the next chapter of your life. You are running to a finish line where the distinction between time and eternity disappears. You are running to a finish line that is surrounded by angels. Loved ones that have finished before you will be waiting to greet you, and you will hear Jesus say, "Well done, welcome home." In our next episode of Encounter Life, we are going to give you the key that unlocks the entirety of the Bible. With this key, your experience in the Bible will take root and grow. It will blossom and bear fruit. Until then, remember, the encounter life is your best life.